uh, introduce our new member. We have a new member from the city joining us from our planning commission, Danny Yoder. Danny, I'll let you take a moment to introduce yourself, and then we'll jump into doing the roll call.
Thanks, Ben. Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you all virtually. I wish we could meet in person, but I guess that'll happen a couple months from now. But as Ben said, I'm the new Planning Commission rep. Rory has kind of termed out, so I'm taking over for him. Rory has a really impressive attention to detail, so I'm going to try my best to borrow some of that in my work here. So looking forward to working with you all.
All right. Thank you, Danny. And Gorion, can you lead us through the roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Ben Chambers,
I am present.
Kelly Brown, Tommy Safranek,
I am also present.
thank you. Danny Yoder,
Here.
Tanya Schwarzendruber,
Here.
Barry Carino Plum,
Here.
Lonnie Murray,
Here.
Charles Proctor, Sandy Shackelford,
Chuck's also here.
thank you. Christine Jacobs,
Present.
Sarah Simba,
Present.
Jason Espy, Bill Palmer,
Here.
Mitch Hubert,
Here.
Woody Hudson, Sarah Pennington,
Present.
Barry Herring,
Here.
Garland Williams. All right, that's the end of the roll call. I believe we have quorum with the people we have present.
All right, great. And I think next we have to make sure that we're following all the rules for this meeting. So can you read the electronic meeting notice, please?
Yes, sir. This meeting of the Charlottesville-Albemarle Metropolitan Planning Organization, CAMPO Technical Committee, is being held pursuant to the Code of Virginia, subsection C of 2.23708.3, which allows the public body to hold all virtual public meetings. This meeting is being held via electronic video and audio means through Zoom online meetings and is accessible to the public. The method for holding this meeting shall not change unless a new meeting notice is provided. Should the electronic transmission fail, you may reach out to the TJPDC at gorjang@tjpdc.org. Notice has been provided to the public through notice of the TJPDC offices, to the media website, and posting on the agenda. The meeting is held pursuant to the remote electronic participation and all virtual meeting policy as adopted by the MPO Policy Board on August 27, 2025. The meeting minutes will reflect that the meeting was held by electronic communication means and the type of electronic communications means by which the meeting was held.
All right, thank you. So our next item is going to be matters from the public. Believe if you are with the public and would like to speak with us, you have to raise your hand. And I'm seeing Peter Krebs. Peter, floor is yours.
Thanks, Ben. I just wanted to invite everybody here and any members of the public to attend the 6th Annual Active Mobility Summit, which is coming up on March 5th and 6th. That's an evening presentation, and we're going to have Pete Eshelman from Roanoke, who's going to talk about how Roanoke has successfully built an economic development strategy around connectivity and access to the outdoors. There'll be plenty of fellowship and also listing out some local wins, which are things that you all have worked on and are working on as well. The next day, we're going to reconvene on Friday morning at the Wolf Factory work sessions and a panel about what a economic development strategy focused on connectivity might look like here in Charlottesville and Albemarle. That's free and open to the public, and information can be found at pecva.org/mobility summit, and I will paste that in the chat if it's permitted. Thank you.
Ben, if you're talking, you're muted. Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you so much. I said a whole bunch of stuff that y'all didn't want to hear. All right, we can move on to our next item, which is review and acceptance of the agenda. I did not see any other hands raised for the matters from the public. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second. Lonnie, and a second from Alberic. We'll just do a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed? Any abstentions?
I abstain. I was not present.
All right, thank you, Tanya. We can move on to our next item, which is approval of the meeting minutes. So you'll be abstaining from that one, Tanya, not from the agenda. So can I get a motion to approve the meeting minutes from our last meeting in December?
Then just two corrections to the meeting minutes from last meeting. Thomas Safranek wanted to abstain from the vote of the smart scale, the recommendation to the policy board. And then based on the email from VDOT, where on page 2 of the meeting minutes, where it reads that this project is recommendation from round 2 of smart scale, it should read that the project is a recommendation from round 2 of the project pipeline study program.
All right, well, thank you for those corrections. Do I have a motion to accept the meeting minutes as amended by Gorion? And please take note of the item at the bottom of your screen that just popped up. You will have to unmute yourself when you do the voice vote. You also need to be visibly seen on video. So do I have a motion to accept the meeting minutes?
I'll motion.
All right, thank you, Sarah. And a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Alberic. All in favor of approving the meeting minutes as amended, say aye.
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 Any opposed? And I know I've got Tanya as an abstention. Do I have any other abstentions for this one?
I will also abstain.
All right, thank you, Danny. All right, well, we can now move along to our next item now that we've got the approval of the minutes. So this is going to be an update from Sandy and Chuck on our smart scale project application that are being developed right now. Sandy.
Sure, thank you, Ben. I have one summary slide, and I wasn't going to go into a lot of details on the applications themselves, but just wanted to give you a quick status update. Mostly we're focusing within this group of the projects that are within the MPO region. So just as a reminder that we, as VDOT, are currently supporting 5 project applications. These are in pretty good shape. We the 29 northbound and US 250 eastbound off-ramp improvements, if you recall, this is a revision to the previous application that was submitted for the Berkshire interchange. So this is a lesser alternative that will hopefully be more competitive in smart scale this round. We will need to revise the study. We have retained a consultant to make those revisions for us. We have a draft concept, and we will look forward to reviewing that with you at a future meeting. The 2 ramp extensions at Old Ivy Road, including the westbound off-ramp extension and the eastbound on-ramp extension application, we have completed the study. We will need to do an operational safety and analysis report. We have a consultant retained that is working on that. We have planning level sketches, so we will need to develop higher level sketches for the applications. VDOT is in that process. We have a finalized concept for the I-64 and 5th Street DDI project. That is a current pipeline study. We have a planning level concept, and we're in good shape to have that prepared. And then the biggest project, I think that that doesn't feel like it's quite as far along as the other ones, is this US 29 southbound at I-64 exit 118. We are still working on revising some concepts and seeing if we are able to get consensus to move forward. So we will be having some discussions on what the next steps are for those projects in the next week or two. Our hope, though, is that if there's continued support from the MPO, that we would be able to submit an application at this location. But we are still working to identify the preferred alternative, and once we do that, we'll be able to move forward on the cost estimate. We're in good shape on the other projects that are being developed, that are planned submissions from the city of Charlottesville and Albemarle County. I won't go into a lot of details on the project concepts themselves at this point. I know there's going to be an upcoming meeting where we'll get into those specifics a little bit further, but I'm happy to take any questions if you have on project status at this time.
All right, so it sounds like we are still in development on these applications. We're working through them. We're going to get together potentially next month and talk about them in more detail, but that's still TBD. And we're going to have a time to vote on these and really move them on to the next phase of smart scale application at a later date. So nothing to vote on this one today, guys, but if you have any questions about where we're at with these projects, now's the time. Otherwise, we can move along to our next piece of business. So I'll open it up to y'all. All right. Then I will keep us moving. Sandy, we're going to look forward to a more in-depth update at our next one. And we can move along to Taylor telling us about our build grant application.
Thanks, Ben. Good morning, everyone. Included in your packet was a draft letter of support for a build project submission for the Rivanna River Bicycle and Pedestrian Crossing Preliminary Engineering Project. The notice of funding opportunity for build was announced on December 15th, and the deadline is February 24th. So staff have been working on gathering application materials, letters of support, and making sure we have everything, all of our ducks in a row for that deadline. So we've submitted this project before for this proposed bicycle and pedestrian bridge between the Pantops growth area and Woolen Mills. Each time it was submitted, it received really high remarks. Every debrief meeting we've had, they continue to encourage us to resubmit it. They said that it's in line with the priorities of the grant program. It just advances to that final level of higher level review, and it's just not picked, but it's very competitive, and they just keep encouraging us to submit it. So the previous application was for $3.5 million to complete preliminary engineering. That cost estimate could change a bit, and staff are currently working with VDOT to make sure we have an updated cost estimate to be able to submit. So today we're seeking a recommendation from Tech Committee for the Policy Board to provide a letter of support to accompany our application.
All right. Before I ask for a motion on this one, any questions from anyone on our committee? All right. Well, I do have one. So we've submitted this. This will be our fourth time, I believe, submitting this project. Have we looked at any other projects that may be feasible for submission for this, or is that something we should maybe do for the next round if we're unsuccessful with this? Because I know they keep recommending to us that we keep submitting, but maybe there's a better opportunity out there if we're going to keep running into the same result.
Yeah, so we asked, if there were other appropriate funding sources when we had that debrief meeting with USDOT, and they said this one would be the best opportunity for this project. And so if this continues to be a priority, we would continue to resubmit it. But if there are other projects, at the direction of the policy board that we'd like to consider instead of this one, that's certainly a conversation we could have.
the last application, I think we heard some feedback that we didn't score well in their innovative materials or processes category. Is there anything different about our project this time where we've tried to supplement that a little bit better?
So we're setting up a meeting with VTRC, the Virginia Transportation Research Council, out of VDOT to see if they can help us revise that language. Specifically, the feedback that we got was that we didn't propose any innovative materials for the bridge. And so that's what we're trying to address, just to see if there's anything a little bit more innovative that we could propose for that. I also read in some correspondence coming out of AMPO, the Association of MPOs, that this administration is very focused on automation. And so if there's anything related to automation that we can add to this, we're also looking to put that into the grant narrative and the cost estimate.
Okay. I think that's all of my questions on this one. Anybody else have any follow-up questions that we would need to talk about before we start making motions? All right. Well, I will take a motion to recommend that we move forward with the letter of support for this project.
So moved.
All right. I got a first from Jason.
Second.
And a second from Tanya. Let's go ahead and do a voice vote on this one. So you'll have to come off mute and make sure that you're on video. All in favor of moving forward with this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. You can move forward with our letter of support, Taylor. Thank you. Next up is going to be the traffic demand model. This is going to be a super riveting conversation about modeling from our friends at TJPDC. So you can go ahead and take it away with that one.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. Just to do a quick introduction before I pass it over to our presenters. So today's meeting is seeking a recommendation to move forward with the 2050 demographics that were forecasted by the project team to be used in our travel demand model. And so they're going to talk a bit about how these were developed. Charlottesville is currently completing a zoning impact study, and we did work with the consultants to be able to get Charlottesville specific demographics developed for the model, and Albemarle County staff have also reviewed this. They provided us a couple revisions, so I welcome them at the end of this presentation. If they'd want to speak a little bit about those, you're welcome to. I'll pass it away.
Sure. Yeah. Good morning. This is Nak Kashai from AECOM. I'm part of the team for the model update. We are in the process of updating the regional model, as part of which we'll be updating the base year to 2022 and then the future year to 2050. Today, we're going to talk a little bit of the demographics for the year 2050. For the updating process, we are using some data sources which include the Weldon Cooper for the 2050 population forecast, and Woodson Pool data, and the decennial and American Community Survey and University of Virginia enrollment and parking data provided. For the city of Charlottesville, the city provided us the total employment estimates and the employment estimates by TAZ. So we are using what was provided for the city of Charlottesville. Yeah. So this is a table that kind of shows like how the model compares against the Weldon Cooper data. And a small note that the model includes city of Charlottesville and portions of most of the Albemarle County and portions from the Greene, Louisa, and Fluvanna counties. So this table shows the population from the Weldon Cooper data and the model, and in general kind of trends similar to the Weldon Cooper data. This table is a summary of the different variables and how they compare between 2022 and 2050. So in general, like they all have healthy growth and within reason. The population is estimated to be growing about like 26%, and then employment about 39%. Just to look at region-wise, this is the district definition that the model currently uses. The plot shows how the districts are. Can we move to the next slide? Yeah, so this is by district, the comparison of the population and employment. And in general, the north of Charlottesville district shows most increase in the population and employment. The population increasing about like 8,500 and the employment about 8,300. The following couple of slides show the thematic maps showing the population, employment, and household distributions in the area. Yeah, this is for the household. Yeah, household populations. This plot shows the employment distribution in the modeling area. The couple of next slides show the changes in the population employment between 2050 and 2022. Yeah, this shows change in employment. And as part of the other input is the model network. So this is a plot showing the 2050 network that is proposed to be used in the model. And there's a plot showing the different facility types. Yeah, the number of lanes. The aim of this update is to develop a tool that could be used to measure different metrics to analyze the performance and effect of different projects in the region. And some of the metrics include like able to get a sense of the congestion in the area, be able to develop some plots showing the level of services, able to be estimating the transit ridership, the mode share, VMT per capita, and get a sense of what's the travel time between different areas to get an idea of the congestion and other metrics. So this is in brief the process we are adopting for the 2050 and where we are. So happy to take any questions.
All right, I will open the floor up to any questions folks might have on modeling. I might have a couple myself.
I've got a couple questions, Ben.
Yeah, go for it.
So I think I mainly have two questions. So first on the demographics, I'm curious, projecting to 2050 is quite a long way from now. Do we ever look back at our previous model updates to understand how our future projections actually turned out? Like, do we tend to be overestimating, underestimating, about right? Is that something that we ever do as part of these update processes?
So as part of this exercise, we have not done, but the previous estimates were also for the 2040, which is still way ahead, that we don't have exact numbers to compare against. This is for right now, we are doing it for the 2050.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second question, this is straying a little bit from demographics, but since we have such a large student population who I assume have very different kind of transportation patterns than maybe a non-student resident, how does the model handle the difference in travel behavior between students and non-students?
So the model has a different module by itself for the university trips and a different module for the regular non-university trips. So both are handled differently and with emphasis on university trips having their own pattern. So there is things built into the model to consider them differently, acknowledging the fact that the trip pattern making is not the same.
Okay, thanks.
All right, do we have any other questions from the committee?
I have a question.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, I'm building on Danny's question about student ridership and how student travel behavior. Are you looking at UTS ridership as well as a factor when you're factoring in their travel behavior? Because UTS has pretty impressive ridership.
Right. So as part of the transit network, we also have the UTS service in the model. So right now we just got started with the mode choice, where we analyze all the trip patterns between the different transit routes and make sure that that's kind of reflected in the model. So we are looking into that too.
All right.
All right. Any other questions on the model? I actually had a couple, and I think, Jason, you were kind of touching on this. When we're looking at the model, it sounds like we're talking a lot about the road network. And I'm curious, I saw that's the last slide of the uses for the model are looking at potential ridership forecasting for transit, or looking at different mode shares. Are we able to do that adequately when the model is really looking at the roadway network, or are we building in some way to measure transit and bike ped in a roadway network that doesn't include those facilities?
So the model does include the transit, detailed transit networks. So we do have the Charlottesville routes, John, Bright, the university routes. So as I briefly mentioned, we are in the process of the mode choice, where we look at what the model estimates for the transit ridership, compare them against the observed data, and make sure the model adequately reflects, along with the highway validation, where we look at the observed counts and the different route, the different categories of the highways, and make sure they all fall within the suggested PPM guidelines from the VDOT. So to answer your question, yes, we do look at in detail about the transit routes too, and ensure that the model is responsive enough and currently reflects observed trends.
And is there a way that you're able to do that for the biking and walking trips as well? Or is that more tied to the network that exists for the roadway?
Yeah, that's part of the network. But if there are trips that are walking and biking and getting onto the transit, that also part of the transit network.
Okay.
And if I could jump in to add a little bit more to that. So we did a lot of exploration for the bike ped component. And one of the challenges is that bike ped trips tend to be a lot shorter, like they happen in smaller geographic areas than what our TAS boundaries represents. So TASs are typically much larger and they capture longer trips. And so that's why we aren't able to specifically pinpoint bike ped trips specifically as something in our model. But it is something that we looked into and explored with the project team to see if that was feasible.
Okay. Jason,
Yeah.
see your hand up.
Building on the question about the transit inputs for the model, what do you have for the future transit network? Because I can imagine a world where it might be here sooner than you know it, where there's commuter bus up to Greene County, up 29. But it's not there now. So
right now we are in the process of calibrating and validating the base year model. We just got started on the 2050, and we are at this point welcoming talking to TJPDC and VDOT to get more inputs on the future networks. So if there are any projects that are currently approved and planned to be in the future year, we will incorporate that and see how the model responds to that.
Right. But to clarify, for what you're looking for today, we're not looking at the model network itself. We're looking at the demographics in the TAZs and saying, yes, we understand what these are. We agree with this smells correctly. And we'd like to make sure that the policy board agrees with us as well. All right. Any other questions that we have on that one? I think if we're satisfied, I will take a motion to pass a recommendation to the policy board to adopt the demographics as provided.
So moved.
All right. Thank you, Jason. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Thank you, Tommy. And I will do this by voice vote as well. So you'll have to come off mute and show your faces. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you all. That will pass along that item, and we can move on to Taylor, your next item, which is the UPWP.
Thank you. All right, give me 1 second to share my screen. All right. Good morning, everyone. So hard to believe it's already time to start planning for next fiscal year, but today I'm going to walk us through the draft fiscal year 27 UPWP, which is basically the MPO's work plan and budget. So today it's only informational. We're here to collect your feedback about what should go in the final draft, and we will come back in April with a finalized version for recommending to the policy board. So a little background on the UPWP, it identifies all of the transportation planning activities that will be conducted by MPO staff for the next fiscal year. It serves as our budget and our work plan, and it should ideally be aligned with regional priorities and deliverables. Federal law requires that all of the metropolitan planning processes address 10 planning factors that are shown in the blocks in red on the right of the screen. The ones in blue are additional frameworks that we added to the UPWP for this fiscal year that were adopted in the last long-range transportation plan. So we added those to make sure we're in alignment with the LRTP while we're conducting all of our planning activities. Just a quick reminder about the MPO's funding sources. So 2 federal agencies primarily fund the planning activities 80%. FHWA or PL funds, those are administered through VDOT, and FTA funds are administered through DRPT. Then we additionally have a 10% local match that we provide, and a 10% state match is added on top of those federal funds. VDOT also receives state planning funds, or SPR, from FHWA to support the activities of the MPO, and those will be shown on the next slide. So the fiscal year 27 work program, funding by source, as mentioned, it is federal, state, and local funds together. Everything is in red here because we have not yet received any updated funding allocation tables, and all of these values are from fiscal year 26, so the current fiscal year. So these will be updated in the next draft that you will receive. All of these are from last year. So as previously mentioned, you'll see down at the bottom in the salmon color where it says VDOT SPR funds. Those are the funds that VDOT receives to be able to support the MPO through things like invoicing, direct costs, things that help us with the work that we're doing. So that funding, the $275,000, is within VDOT's control. What's within the MPO's control is the $481,000 number. And everything that's captured in this budget includes staff time, it includes direct expenses, admin expenses, things like printing, mileage, professional development for staff. All of that is captured in this budget. For funding by task, the splits that we recommended in the last UPWP, we recommend carrying forward. So task 1, program administration at 25% of the funds. Task 2, long-range transportation planning at 30% of the funds, and that one's lower since we're not in an LRTP update year. And task 3, short-range planning and technical assistance at the highest share at 45%, because we recognize those short-range tasks are what we're working on the most these fiscal years. So the smart scale applications, any technical support that our member jurisdictions need, working on the tip, things like that. So a couple highlights from the current UPWP. We try to do a look back every time we're drafting the next one. And so I do recognize that we're still about 6 months out from the next fiscal year. So some of these activities are still in progress. But a couple things that we've already accomplished from this UPWP is Move Safely Blue Ridge, our comprehensive safety action plan. So we completed that plan this fiscal year, and all of our member jurisdictions adopted it from the Planning District Commission. The Regional Transit Partnership and Charlottesville-Albemarle Regional Transit Authority, or CARTA. This fiscal year, we officially completed that transition, and the CARTA board has been stood up for a full year. They have bylaws, and they have members appointed to that. Safety performance targets is something that we do every fiscal year. That's already come before you all for recommendation to the policy board, and they will provide an adoption and approval vote this month. The fiscal year 24 to 27 Transportation Improvement Program has been a really big work item this fiscal year. We're completing a comprehensive update of our tip document that's currently in progress, and a draft should come before you at your next meeting. Of course, smart scale work, and we are also updating our travel demand model. Other highlights are the development and submission of grant applications. So we've talked about, we submitted an additional Safe Streets and Roads for All grant application this fiscal year, a 5310 grant application for our PATH program, rideshare grant application, and then we are working on submitting a build grant application as mentioned earlier. And then of course, on an ongoing basis, we are participating in STARS and project pipeline studies as a stakeholder in those studies. So for the fiscal year 27 UPWP, I wanted to highlight a couple ongoing and continued activities that will remain in the next UPWP. So MPO administration, so staffing our committees, invoicing, reporting requirements that will remain in the UPWP. Smart scale coordination will continue to be in there to make sure we're submitting those full applications and any follow-up that's related to those. Continuing to participate in the STARS and project pipeline studies and new ones as they begin next fall. The annual adoption of performance safety targets, continuing the TDM study that we started this fiscal year, and the development and submission of other grant applications as applicable. And going through a couple new things that we're recommending for the next UPWP, the first of which is best practices in benchmarking. So that's incorporated into administration, short range, and long range, so all three buckets in the UPWP. And really the intention of this task is to benchmark policies, performance measures, and how we can implement that from peer MPOs. So really looking at our policies and procedures, the work that we do to make sure we're in alignment with what's going on in the state and that we have really firm grasp on the core activities that we're supposed to be doing as an MPO. So that could involve data management, public involvement, project prioritization, could involve looking at our bylaws. Have our bylaws been updated or do they need to be updated? The next activity incorporated into short range and long range sections of the UPWP includes some data visualization activities. So that's creating GIS layers from the projects in our LRTP and in the new TIP document that will be adopted this fiscal year. We recognize that we have access to a lot of data here at the MPO. We receive a data dump quarterly on projects that are happening within the MPO boundary, what phase it's in, how much it costs, if there have been any extensions. And so beginning to explore how we can visualize some of that data and make that publicly available, make that available to you all, other staff members as necessary. And finally, for the last new activity, it would be evaluating the feasibility of establishing a bicycle and pedestrian count data program here at the MPO. Previously, the MPO has done volunteer bike counts. That's something that we've historically done, and we have heard from Charlottesville and Albemarle staff that having better bicycle and pedestrian data would be valuable for them. That could be valuable for project planning, for grant writing, for safety analysis. And so we'd really use next fiscal year to evaluate how we can start that sort of program, maybe to identify a pilot that could be run, what locations would be good for this type of work, and what equipment do we need that would be most appropriate for those locations. So next steps, a draft of the UPWP was included in your packet today. And so this is sort of the starting point of getting this information before you and having some discussions on, are these the right regional priorities to capture in here, to talk with our state and federal partners since they both have to approve the UPWP every fiscal year. And then of course, updating the document with those actual budget values once we receive them. So once we are ready to prepare a final draft, we do also have to do public notice for that and have a public comment period. And then we'll come back before you in April with a final draft presentation looking for recommendation for approval. With that, happy to take any questions.
All right. Thank you, Taylor. I'm going to start with Lonnie.
Yes. First, I'm excited to see the idea of the bicycle and pedestrian count in there. I think that that's very important. I know that there's a need, at least for Albemarle and Charlottesville, to do a new park needs assessment. And, and as we heard from Peter Krebs earlier, there's also, an angle in terms of, regional tourism and economic benefits of, bicycle and, and pedestrian. So I wonder if there's a way to coordinate some funding with those other efforts. so that we can sort of get benefits in multiple directions, so that could inform things like park planning and also, economic development and tourism.
Awesome. Thanks, Lonnie. That's really good feedback.
All right. Any other folks who want to have a question for Taylor on UPWP? I'll also echo Lonnie's excitement about the bike ped counters. That's something that we as a city have sort of struggled to wrap our minds around because we know it's bigger network than just the city. So excited to have some support and some partnership on that. And I'll also echo what Lonnie touched on a little bit. I know the city is looking at working on a mobility plan that's citywide, and I know the county is starting to look into that as well, following their comp plan. Making sure that your efforts are aligned with our efforts is going to be useful. I don't know that really changes your UPWP all that much, but it may change some of the topics that we talk about along the way throughout that UPWP.
Yeah.
Christine, I see your hand up.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a granular detail, so it wouldn't be in this presentation. But one thing staff have been talking about is currently we do every other year a joint meeting with Central Shenandoah MPOs and us, and we talked about perhaps writing into the UPWP so that it's incorporated into staff time and any direct costs that would be associated, considering a joint meeting between the MPO and the Charlottesville-Albemarle Regional Transit Authority. So making sure the MPO and the Transit Authority are coming together once every 2 years to have shared content, information sharing, things like that. There's a lot of duplication in who is on them, but I think it would be pretty valuable to make sure that's included in the UPWP.
Yeah, I like that suggestion. All right. Any other questions, suggestions, comments for Taylor? We're not voting on this today, just looking at the draft and providing some feedback and some direction. Looking like everybody's satisfied with what they're seeing, Taylor, so we can move on to our next item. Oh no, I lost my window. Our next item is VDOT project updates from Chuck or Sandy.
Do you want to take that one, Chuck? Maybe I can get us started and there you go.
Like I said, I don't really have any updates. We're doing this, working on the studies, we're working on smart scale. I think Sandy gave you an update earlier on that. The individual projects, I'm not up to date on what the status on those are for the bundles in and around the city and the county. We could get you that update late and send it over to the county, to the MPO, and they can distribute it to you.
Okay, great. Thank you. And maybe I will pick on you, Sandy, just a second. I haven't had a chance to catch up with you on how our West Main and Ridge public open house went and what the next step is for that.
I forget what the exact number of attendance we had on at the meeting itself, but we had a public meeting for the STARS project in Charlottesville at the Ridge, West Main, West Water Street intersection. I think we had probably, I want to say maybe about 20 to 25 people attend, so a little bit less than the first open house, but I have received probably close to 20 emails or so with comments. Most of them are pretty favorable. There are some that are concerned about the one-way impacts on businesses, but still a lot of good engagement. The comment period is open through February 5th. All
right. Thank you so much on that. So we've got our VDOT project updates underway. Staff updates. Taylor, or Gorion, any updates from TJPDC?
So for this packet, we included a written staff update just to make sure we're covering all the bases, giving you all as much information as possible. So I won't go through and read that entire document, but just calling out a couple items of note. So the federal fiscal year 25 annual obligation report previously came before you as a draft. We have published and posted that document. It's not anything that needs to be approved. It's an informational document that basically shows an accounting of the last federal fiscal year for how many federal funds were obligated that fiscal year. So that has been published, and there's a link to our website for anyone who's interested. We did receive notification that we did not receive our Safe Streets and Roads for All application that we applied for. That was a partnership with UVA and Honda for that research project. Staff also attended a debrief meeting last week on that to receive feedback about how that application did, and Gorion sent out some written updates with the feedback that we received on that project. Other than that, I also want to mention, I know we've come to this group before with a previous presentation related to CTAC, related to what the MPO's activities are, how CTAC has been involved in the past, how they could be involved in the future. So we just want to keep you all in the loop and let you know that at the policy board's meeting this month, they should be taking action on what the future structure of CTAC could look like, if anyone is interested in joining and dialing into that one. I think that's it. The packet was a little thick this time, so we also passed along some information from a previous OIP quarterly MPO meeting that we attended. This is something that Ben asked us to send around, so we're happy to keep sharing that information as it's applicable. If we receive smart scale updates, if there's anything at the CTB that could be of interest for you all, we can continue to pass those along. So there were some extra presentations and things included in your packet for today.
Yeah, I really appreciate the report so that we have a reference. That's super helpful to have that all in one place. And I know that we usually finish up our meetings with the roundtable updates. We have run into some timing issues with that in more recent meetings because we've had such long discussions about some of the topics that we really wanted to dig into. So we may look into doing more of this sort of shared written update in the future. Today, we've made our time pretty well through the meeting. So we have time for roundtable updates and more discussion. But before we jump to that, I do want to open up the floor for some questions or discussion around anything that may be in the staff update if you need any further clarifications. All right. Seeing none, there's also a lot of material. So if you haven't gotten through that yet, get your eyes on that. It's great info from our TJPDC staff. So with that, I will jump us to the next item. Thank you, Taylor. We will do roundtable updates. I will kick us off with City of Charlottesville. So first thing I wanted to mention, I talked about a little bit earlier. We are working through scoping what a citywide mobility plan looks like. Right now, that means that we are trying to pull together sort of existing conditions and existing data to figure out what we've got and what our direction has been to this point. Luckily, we've got some great intern support over the semester that we're going to be putting to that effort. But it's going to be a big lift throughout this spring for us. We're trying to get an RFP out in June so that we can get some consultant support on that mobility plan. So that's my large focus at this point. Tommy, who is also on the line, a large focus of his is something that we went to council with last night, which is our e-bike voucher program. That is a pilot that we set up last year to give away vouchers to folks who are interested in having an e-bike. Last year, it was a flat $1,000. We gave out about 25 every quarter. We ended up having 91 plus bikes being purchased through our local bike shops. And it was a great success in our eyes. The one thing that we did think that we had room for improvement on was making sure that we were making that impact equitably. And so this year we were looking at more of a tier approach for different voucher levels that are available for people at different income levels. So if you are receiving public assistance and you're below 80% AMI, we're going to be able to give you a $1,500 voucher, which could actually cover the cost of an e-bike totally, may incentivize people who are in that income bracket to participate a little bit more and get that benefit from the bike program. So last night we went to council and Tommy and our sustainability team got council to reappropriate money so we can continue that for another year. So we're really excited about that. We just we're currently running the lottery, and there should be, I think, about 36 people who are going to be hearing this week about whether they got a very nice coupon for a new e-bike. The other thing that we're working through is expansion of services. And this may actually be more of an Albemarle County update. CAT is working to expand services on their Route 2, realigning so that we have connections from the city to the jail and the Mill Creek Shopping Center area. That's been an effort that Zoe's been pretty heavily engaged in over the past few months. And this past weekend, we submitted an application to DRPT to get some support to build out the bus stops for that expansion. So a lot of fun activities happening over here in the city. I will pass it along to folks in the county. Alberic or Tanya, if you want to let us know what y'all are working on.
Sure, Ben, I'll take that. First of all, I want to introduce a new team member who is on the call. Jessica Dimmick has joined our team. I'll give her a minute to maybe introduce herself quickly, and she will be attending these meetings from here on out.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jessica Dimmick. I started with Albemarle County 3 weeks ago as the principal transportation planner. I am replacing Jessica Hirsch-Vallering's position, and I've been a resident here in the Charlottesville-Albemarle County area for 15 plus years, coming from the private consulting side, background in traffic engineering and transportation planning. And I'm really excited to work with you all in this capacity.
Thanks, Jessica. Ben, as you mentioned, we too are looking at launching our multimodal transportation plan effort. We're right now looking at what that looks like, what the process looks like, as well as looking at timing. We think we'll be able to kick that off sometime this summer, possibly late fall. And currently, once we get that scope in place, we'll be collecting our existing conditions and whatnot as well, and existing information. Lonnie, looks like you have a question. I have a feeling it might be on that plan.
Yeah, it's just let me know how I can be more involved.
Sure. We'll make note of that. Thank you. Other things that we're working on, we've been working pretty closely with VDOT to look at our smart scale applications, as well as giving input on the stars and pipeline studies. In anticipation of our revenue sharing applications next year, we are kicking off 2 studies, one for the Free Bridge Promenade, and the other one looking at the feasibility of Moores Creek Greenway. I will pause there and see if Alberic has anything to add. All right, I think that's it for the county.
All right, thank you all. Next up is rideshare. Sarah, do you have any updates for us?
Not any large updates like everyone else. We spent most of December and January working on DRPT applications for our annual operating funds. We are in the process still of doing some website redesign and restructure this year, and then next year, as we wrote in our grant, our focus will really be on rebuilding our employer database and those relationships and getting tapped in with that particular source and direction to reach our commuters.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Next is VDOT. Sandy, Chuck, do you have anything else? I think y'all are just hard at work doing homework at this point.
I don't have anything else.
All right. Next up would be DRPT. Mitch, do you have anything for us?
Nothing too new other than what's already in your agenda packet, other than our grants have closed and we've begun scoring. So if you applied for one, be on the lookout for any sort of emails requesting information or anything like that. And then, yeah, that's it.
All right, thank you. Do we have anybody from FHWA or FTA?
We don't have anybody present.
All right, thanks. Next up would be CAT. I kind of gave the update of some of the work that they're doing. They're working through their budget for this upcoming fiscal year as well. I think we just had Barry on the call this morning, and he needed to leave just a little bit early. So get a further update from Kat in the future. Jason, do you have any updates for us?
Yeah, just a couple. Happy to report that John recently hired a chief of operations, Andy Steed. He has a lot of 20 years of plus experience managing transit operations. Super excited, as well as a senior director of operations and as well as a communications manager. So we're slowly staffing up over a number of years of having Finn in those positions. We are prioritizing scheduling and dispatch software changes to bring us in the current decade. We are starting with a pilot of mobility on demand. Some people know that as microtransit. We're going to pilot that in Greene County and also for ADA paratransit for the city of Charlottesville. Just a note on that, any changes in the CAT routes impact our ADA footprint, and therefore, John, we're joined at the hip. So glad to hear CAT's expanding, but we'll need to take that into account as well. We applied for a DRPT demo grant recently for expanding midday service demand response for Fluvanna and Louisa, based on need for customer, client feedback we've heard from PATH and from surveys, as well as a extension of fixed route commuter service from Greene County to urbanized Charlottesville, Albemarle. Very excited about that. And if we get those, we'll be needing to coordinate with PATH and Rideshare to promote those new services. Yeah, that's about it for John.
All righty. And who is last on my list? UVA. Bill Palmer, do you have anything for us?
Nothing major. I think we just have the continuing construction at IVM or the Ivy Corridor. One of our construction projects is the North Grounds parking garage that is fast being put up, and that'll have some innovative, not just being a parking garage, but the idea of a hub where you park there, and then there'll be like bike storage facilities and things of that nature, bus stops to get you on grounds without a car in a number of ways. Also, construction at Fontaine continues with the hope of starting that new, using that garage as more of a commuter garage soon for health system employees. No date yet on when that will cut over, though.
Hey, Bill, is that garage also going to have like bike storage for folks who might want to head into?
Yeah, beyond like traditional bike racks, I think there are some covered racks there, but I don't think there's a dedicated room for bike storage, but I have to look into that. I can't quite remember.
Well, let's follow up with that. I know someone whose bike was stolen from Fontaine a couple weeks ago. So having something a little bit more secure than just a staple rack could be beneficial.
Noted. Thanks.
Awesome. All right. That's all from our roundtable updates. Additional matters from the public. I am looking for hands raised in our participant menu and not seeing any. All right. Well, that moves us on to our next meeting date. It looks like it's April the 7th. TJPDC staff, do you want to touch on any of the discussion about meeting before then to coordinate on smart scale things, or are we gonna? That's a TBD kind of discussion.
Yeah, so as Sandy alluded to a little bit earlier, we are looking to schedule a special meeting of the MPO Policy Board for more information on smart scale projects. And so once we have that date solidified, we will forward the invitation to all of you as well if you'd like to attend. But the purpose of that meeting is for City, County, and MPO staff to present what smart scale projects we intend to submit for full application period. We will provide more updated information if we have new concepts, cost estimates, things like that. And that is so that in the April meeting, the policy board can provide a recommendation for a resolution of support. So it's really just to be able to get more information in front of you all before those April meetings.
All right. All right. So keep on the lookout for an invite for that meeting. And if not, we will adjourn until April 7th. And we will be in person for that meeting because we can't do more more than one of these in a row virtually. And hopefully the renovations at the TJPDC offices will be completed, and we'll get to see the bright, shiny new space that they have. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.